Hi, Dr. Gwen here with Raleigh Grad Swing Initiative, looking to bring continued, concise, and accurate information as we continue with our community service during this time of the COVID. We've done a series of clips on timely topics that can help us to cope during these times. We've covered mental health concerns, we've covered medical issues related to COVID and taking care of ourselves, and we've done things that we can do to take care of ourselves in terms of hobbies, wine collecting, tastings, dancing, drama. We've looked at nutrition, and as I said, we've looked at some medical concerns, how we can best take care of ourselves. We've even taken a look at how to declutter our living environments while we are in this pandemic. So we've done quite a bit so far, and congratulations and thank you to all of the individuals who have been a part of this. And if this is something that you are interested in doing, let Rock know. She's on Facebook, and Raquel Rouse is our public affairs individual. And if you want to share something with us, then please do. So today what I wanted to do was talk about another topic, and this is a mental health topic, and it's related to the pandemic, and it's about grief. Grief is a deep feeling of sadness and pain that comes about as the loss of a person, place, or even a thing. We generally relate loss to the loss of an individual, and we call that bereavement. However, we can experience loss from other areas in our lives, such as jobs, relationships, and during this time of COVID, we have definitely done some rearranging of things in our lives that may not have been possibly grieved. I will let you know that grief is not a one-size-all experience. Different people experience grief differently. It depends upon just your life experiences, your cultural backgrounds, but whatever that process is that you go through to make meaning of a loss of something or someone, that is your grief process, or maybe lack thereof, because sometimes grief is something that we're not quite sure we're experiencing. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, because it is a complex emotion. Sometimes you're sad, sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're busy, and you don't know where these things are coming from. And it could be related to a sense of loss in your life. So, since we know that grief can go from a mild sadness to just a seemingly hopeless suffering experience, it can be short, it can be long. Let's find out how we can make sense of this pandemic and our grief experiences. So, in addition to losing our loved ones, we are experiencing a cultural shift in how we are able to respond to losses. In our communities, we typically provide a homegoing ceremony for our loved ones or important people in our lives. And usually that homegoing celebration serves a lot of purposes. It brings closure for us, because that's typically who the service is for. And then it also helps us get a better sense of who this individual was, who this individual is, who this individual was, yeah. So that's what the homegoing celebrations can consist of. And for us, we've lost some of those experiences of making sense out of the lives of individuals that we have encountered. It has been said that homecoming celebrations provide a sense of humanity, because when you walk away from a homegoing celebration, you get a sense of knowing that individual a little better, knowing something else about him or her, and just providing a fuller sense of knowledge regarding that purpose. Well, these things, we get this information through our stories that are shared, through the fellowship that we experience during these times. And so for us, during the loss of individuals, we're also losing some of our routines and some of our rituals, again, that help us to make sense of the loss. In addition to losing individuals, we can have a sense of loss in our daily routines. Some of us no longer worship, entertain, or just plain have fun the way we did in the past. We're finding new ways of doing things. And so, if I were to stop to take a minute and say, can you think of something that you've lost? Most likely there are things that you have lost. Those things are related to what your daily routines were all about, and maybe implementing something new that's replacing something that's gone. So what about coping with loss during a pandemic? We are making some adjustments. And how do you take care of yourself during those times? Understand the grief that is associated with the pandemic. Staying at home, that's a big deal. That's a whole new thing. That's something. Just a loss of freedom. The pandemic can also have major psychological effects on people. Having a sense of safety, a sense of security, a sense of being in control, freedom. These are all feelings that this new normal may impose upon us and be a part of an overall COVID kind of grief experience, as the Mayo Clinic calls it. We are looking at, as a result of the pandemic, we are looking at a sense that you not only feel attached to people, but there are other elements in our lives, like our offices, our jobs, places, people that we see at work. These are all things that are changing, can be a source of grief for us. So what might we do to counteract that? There are a number of things that we can do. First of all, is just to recognize how grief can impact our sense of self. You might feel numb, you might feel empty, unable to experience joy. You may have excess fatigue, sleeping, shakiness, maybe socially withdrawing. Or in the time of social distancing, that might be what's going on, but you might want to check it out, because sometimes we do have opportunities to mingle and interact with folks in a safe way, and just make sure you're not passing up those, because that may be a sign of grief. Just one other thing, though, to keep in mind, and that is that grief can have a positive effect. Grief can help us appreciate those good things in our lives. Grief can help us to expand our gratitude in many areas of our lives. We develop our relationships. We have connections with people who are having similar kinds of experience. So what do we do to deal with this grief, this overall COVID grief that's incorporating not only our loss of loved ones, and we have had a few losses in our organizations and in our families that impact us, in addition to the loss of routine and these other things that are going on. So the first thing is to pay attention to your feelings. Allow yourself to feel sad and cry. It's okay. It's okay to not be okay during these kinds of times. It's okay to say, I need a moment, I need to sit down and cry. You might want to keep up with your feelings in a journal. Journaling is a great way of connecting with your feelings, because we're so busy during the day. Sometimes we just don't even keep up with ourselves. Think about your strengths. We all have strengths, and we have some coping skills. How can they help you move forward? Think about some situations in your life that you were able to get through. One of my experiences in grad school was writing about a difficult experience that you experienced, and why this experience is important to you. And my situation happened to be about a death of a family member that I got through, and I never saw that as a source of strength. It was just something that you did. But what you're doing when you go back and find the things that you do well, you're laying the groundwork to reach back and recognize that, you've gotten through one thing so you can get through another. And a journal can help you with that. So think about your strengths and the coping skills that you have. Stay connected. It's very important to stay connected to the individuals in your life, however you stay connected with them, virtually, texting, telephone, socially approved distancing, things of that nature. And just reach out and do the social chats, the virtual wine parties. All of these are ways of connecting and not feeling so isolated, and just reinforcing and validating you as a human because you're connecting with another. Um, the other thing that you want to take a look at is maybe, adapting a new routine. I've talked about the loss of routines, of doing things differently. Well, what about establishing a new routine? That can provide a sense of order and purpose. So even though things may have changed, you're setting up a routine per your requirements in your environment that hopefully will give you a sense of control. Of course, you want to limit your news diet, social media diets, all of that stuff. You want to just make sure that you are not doing too much of that because you want a focus on the positive. In a future presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about being resilient, and one of the characteristics of being a resilient individual is being able to focus on the positive. So with a steady diet of news and some of these other things, it surely would help us feel as if a situation is hopeless. So let's be mindful of that. So at any rate, that's it for this time. And if you have any questions, make sure that you get in touch with us. As I mentioned earlier, Raquel Routes is our PR person, and she's available to you on our webpage or on social media. And if you do have an area of expertise, especially brothers, let's take a look at sharing. Let's take a look at helping each other during this time. So until the next time, thank you, and be safe and be careful.